All right, so I've talked about this topic a little bit, but I want to delve into it a little bit deeper because it's something we're going to see in the near future, and it's something that a lot of people, it's going to hit them with a lot of shock, and they're not really going to like it and understand it. So, just want to give people a little bit of a forewarning. So this is from Peter Schiff. Now, if you don't know who he is, he's an economist. He's very knowledgeable in economics, investing, all that kind of stuff, and a very good follow too. Like on Twitter, YouTube, his podcast is very good to listen to, so check him out. Like I say, very knowledgeable guy, and not only that, he was one of the guys who basically predicted the '08 crash. He's made a lot of predictions that very few people agree with at the time that turn out to be true. So definitely a very good follow. But anyway, he goes on to say here, people still don't understand that the economy and the stock market were bubbles before the coronavirus pinpricked both. Even after the virus is cured, there's no going back to the way things were. We can't just restart the economy because it's impossible to reflate the bubbles. Now, it's a very true statement, and it's something that I've been talking about, that we're more than likely going to have to go back to works. I mean, I don't know. The government, I can always count on the government for doing the exact opposite thing that should be done. But anyway, at least in reality, we're going to have to go back to work more than likely sooner than we want to, or at least maybe not we want to, but if all things being ideal and in a perfect world, we would. And that's going to be a problem because we kind of have to pick between literally destroying the economy and risking having more people get infected and sick. Personally, I would err on the let's go back and risk getting a few extra people sick and die, because the problem is that again, would you rather have a massive recession, worse than the Great Depression, at least numbers wise, or would you rather have an extra 1,000 or two Canadians die? Again, very tough decision, but I think that if you're going to make millions of people suffer, does that justify, again, the 1,000 or two people that would die? Again, it's a tough question. It's more that I want to get into at this point, but again, it's going to be a very hard thing for people to realize that, again, people think that it's just the downturn is just because of the virus. Once the virus goes away, or at least subsides, we're going to go right back to normal, and it's not going to happen, especially in Canada. Schiff he's an American. I don't think he doesn't live in the States, but he's an American. He usually talks more about American stuff, and the Canadian economy is worse than the American economy going into this. The American economy wasn't, I mean, compared to Canada, it was good, but it wasn't great compared to an actual true good economy. And like I say, the Canadian economy was worse. So it's going to be even harder for us. And again, there's going to be some very, very, very tough times that we're in for. And the if the government solution is, oh, let's just print massive amounts of money, well, then they may prevent the massive suffering in the here and now, but they just delay it. Now that's more than likely what the government's going to do. That's, again, that's my prediction. That's more than likely what the government will do. It won't be quite as bad as what I'm thinking that it will be, but the problem is that they're just delaying it, and they'll more than likely do that because I think they know at some point, especially the Trudeau government, they're going to either they're going to get voted out, whether it's a different leftist party, that gets voted in, or the conservatives somehow find a way to get in. If the conservatives find a way to get in, my guess is the economy collapses under them, because there's partially because they're not really conservative anymore, partially because there's such a massive amount of debt and all that kind of stuff. It's going to have to blow up at some point. But getting back to this whole topic, again, it's something that I want to bring up. I want to make it clear. Again, people are going to be, 6 months down the road, people are going to be going on, why is the economy still not doing very good? And they're going to be placing blame. In the States, they'll blame Trump. It'll be all Trump's fault. Again, it's no longer the Obama economy. And in Canada, I think they'll blame the free market. They'll blame anything but the actual problems, the actual causes. The actual causes were China, basically. But again, the economy was going to get pricked the bubble was going to get pricked at some point, and the problem is terrible, terrible government policy. Again, this is something that whenever we talk about the whole partisan nature of politics, the political divide nowadays, this is something that should be easy to find common ground on, like easy. But again, the fundamental aspect behind the left nowadays is grow the government at all costs. Who cares about, anything? Who cares how much we have to lie to people, how much we have to put our head in the sand? Grow the government at all costs. And that's the problem, is that the government being too big, the government having too much power is what caused all this kind of stuff. It's not the free market. Again, the markets have never been less free, and at least in Canada and the States. We've consistently gone away from a free market, and yet you still have these kind of people trying to blame the free market. Like, please, like, you're fooling a lot of people because they're so brainwashed and dumbed down, but you're not fooling me and people that are actually awake. And like I say, I want to make this stuff clear because this is something that's going to hit us when this whole thing, subsides. And I want to be ahead of the curve here and just, updating people that we're not just going to crawl out of this, unscathed. A lot of people are out of work, and the problem is that when this is over, a lot of these businesses aren't going to have money to pay people, especially people that are unessential. Again, which is why, not because the crazy lefties in Alberta, for example, that think, oh, Jason Kenney's just the worst. He's cutting all these public sector jobs. When the reason he's doing it isn't because he's evil. Again, that's the problem too. That just bothers me so much about these people. They can't spend 1 second and think, hey, is there a logical reason to why he's doing this? Like whenever I hear Justin Trudeau do something, it always crosses my mind. Like, hey, is there a logical reason to he's doing this? Is there good intentions behind some of this stuff? And I do think there is good intentions behind some of the things he does. But these people on the left seem to be completely oblivious. You can see that with Trump too. Completely oblivious. That is, hey, is there an underlying reason here other than he's stone cold evil, Hitler 2.0? But no, that's what they think. He's stone cold evil. He's the second coming of Hitler, literally. And again, just goes to show the bubble that those kind of people are in too. But um, like I said, the problem is government. The problem is too much government involvement in the economy. And again, if there was less government involvement in the economy, if the government didn't massively inflate everything, this would have all figured itself out. It would have all figured itself out. And again, that's figured itself out by definition. There's no debating that too. People always like to argue that. No, there's no debating that. What their debate would be is, okay, well, how would it have been figured out? How much suffering would have there been? Because again, the difference between the free market and the government is the government delays all suffering, and then there's massive, insane amounts of suffering. It's like the difference between, being punched by, a 5-year-old kid and punched, by Mike Tyson. The government solution, okay, well, we'll let you, the 5-year-old kid punch you every day, and, wait 10 years for Mike Tyson to give you a haymaker, or, can we just have the 5-year-old kid keep doing it? That's the difference. The free market, again, people they'd rather avoid the little bit of suffering to have the massive amount of suffering down the road, compared to the government does the exact opposite. The government just delays any suffering and they push it down the road. The free market, sometimes a little bit of suffering's in order because people make terrible decisions. That's the only way you learn from bad decisions, is if there's a little bit of suffering. Again, it's just completely backwards, makes no sense. I mean, it makes sense from the perspective of the people doing it, is that they want to avoid suffering. But the problem is, again, whenever you delay suffering, you kick the can down the road, you guarantee you're going to face it at some point. Like, if every time you feel anxious, you go and you get drunk or you get high, that's going to work off the start. Yeah, that's going to work really good, but eventually you're addicted to drugs or alcohol, and you die, 10, 20 years sooner than you would. Maybe you're homeless, or because you spend so much on drugs and alcohol, you're living in, with some dump. You have no good relationships, all that kind of stuff. And again, that's a good sorry, a good analogy compared to this kind of stuff. The free market is, let's hit it straight on. Let's deal with it in the here and now. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of suffering, but it avoids the massive amount of suffering down the road. And yet on the other side, you have the government, which is the let's go do drugs or alcohol kind of. kind of people. You delay the suffering in the here and now. You feel good in the here and now, but again, down the road, massive amount of suffering. So anyway, like I said, go check out Peter Schiff. A very good follow, very informative, very knowledgeable guy. One of the most informative and knowledgeable guys in the industry, if you ask me. Um, yeah, and basically, yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Again, I've talked quite a bit about this subject. I don't want to go on anymore. So if you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I do have my PayPal linked in the description. I do have an email address for e-transfer. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already.